welcome to MakerSpace NYC. Check out our member highlight for this month, Anneke. Let's check out what she does. So tell me more about your path and your journey. You're a director, filmmaker, and a maker. How did you get started?
So I've actually been working in the film industry for almost 20 years now. I know. How did that happen? But I worked my way up traditionally, like as a crew member, starting as a production assistant and going into the art department. That, you know, I've always been drawn to the maker side of being a filmmaker. Understanding in editing, like how it's put together, you know, in your shooting, but even down to the props and the design and what is involved in making a film, not just shooting a film or just capturing a film, but like really crafting and sculpting a film. So I've been working as a film director, mostly doing TV commercials for the last 8 years or so. And as I got further into being able to direct and create my own work and content, I started missing the making, literally with my hands, making. So as a side passion project, I started working in stop motion animation.
Oh, okay.
So as a result, I do every kind of making that there is. I just do everything as a miniature. So whether it's doing soldering and metalwork, or laser cutting, or sewing, or upholstery, or this is 3D printed with molding and casting. And then, you know, scenic paint work to age it down. So you can see like the little, where the water drips out and it starts to age, and, you know, all those kind of little details. So I get to try every different tool and skill gets applied to what I do, so it's kind of limitless in a way that's really, really exciting. Anything that I want to explore can be made into something relevant for stop motion animation. So it also helps living in New York City and having small spaces available to me to be making tiny things instead of full-scale things. I don't need an entire like storage unit for the props as I'm getting ready for my film. I can kind of store things in small boxes on shelves and build up to it that way. So there's a lot of appeal to trying new things in miniature. Yeah. It made it a lot more accessible. Even trying to learn something completely new, it's not so intimidating because I'm not making some really big piece and I'm not making something that I'll live with every day. I'm making something kind of decorative. I'm making something small so that it's a lot more manageable of a task. And yeah, so that started a few years ago. And now it's my full-time passion.
Your work is beautiful. Can you go through each piece and like what part of the space do you use?
Yeah, so I am the laser cutting queen. I don't know how I'm gonna live without a laser cutter in my life. Oh, okay. Laser cutting is the best. So this stuff are all pieces. They'll get interlocked, so they get rivets added to them. And what I'm making is architectural I-beams. Oh. So this becomes a full architectural structure that you might, so if you looked at it that way, and you'd see all the nail heads. So when you walk under the above ground subway trains or the highway and you see that all that architecture of it all being held up, this is that on a miniature scale. So I mean, by miniature it's still kind of big. Once this stuff is built and everything's put together, this is a 4 foot tall high structure with 6 feet in length. So it's still very substantial, but right now, and building it in these pieces, it's super manageable. So that's all laser cut. This piece is 3D print that then I made molds of the center piece so that I could mold and cast as many copies and make this as big as I wanted to make it. This little stool.
So tiny.
It was laser cut here, and the first one I built ended up being much even though I used math, I like found something on auction that was, and I'm like, okay, this is what I want to make, and I do the math and scale it down. It still felt way too large for what I wanted it for, and but it only took one test. It only took one try to like break this back down. So I just laser cut it flat in little pieces and then put it together like a puzzle.
Wow.
So it was actually quite a quick build. This is one of my most loved recent projects. So this is a dressing screen where these pieces and the pieces, the way they all fit, is laser cut. But then I came into the wood shop and started doing some Dremel carving to carve in more detail and give it a hand finish. So that's something that I really believe in a lot in my film and in the style that I go for in my personal work, is about having tools that give me what I need, but not having the tool be the style of the piece. So this looks laser cut, and that's, just leave it as it is. The look of this piece is a laser cut look. That's not what I wanted here. I wanted this to feel hand carved, but have all these kind of delicate details that would have been intense to add by hand. So I was able to like cut out the lace and then carve it to give it that texture that I was hoping for in the end.
It's very beautiful. Wow.
This chair, also a lot of laser cut pieces. And then fun fact, the cushioning in this chair, when we had our volunteer day at MakerSpace Brooklyn, and we tore apart all of the chairs to redo them as Brooklyn MakerSpace chairs, we were throwing out a lot of foam, and I'm among the makers that can't stand stuff being thrown away. And I always want to reuse and recycle and like try and find how I can make something out of nothing, or make something out of garbage, you know? Things that the rest of the world finds no value in, but I could turn it into something really beautiful. So like I have a floor in my set that's made out of coffee stir sticks. The walls and the bricks in those walls are made out of egg carton cardboard and different cardboards that I collected from restaurants and other things so that I could get enough of it to do this, but it was very literally made of garbage. And now it's something really beautiful and something that you look at and you're just like, wow, how did you do it?
Yes, wow, how did you do it? It's beautiful.
So this is some of the throwaway foam from our old chairs, a scrap of fabric, and then I laser cut the designs for the interlocking pieces. So again, this is wasn't that crazy a thing to build in the end, because the design stage kind of calculated it all, and now laser cutting allowed me to be so precise that I'm not trying to like shave it back down or resolve problems with a lot of handwork. It fit, everything fit together. It was a matter of covering it, putting in foams, you know, and those kinds of things. This is another, so and yes, I'm making it in miniature, but this is working on making a quilt in miniature scale. And these pieces of fabric, I could take a 1" by 1" square and still be able to not throw it away. Wow. And so this is a style of quilting called English paper piecing. And it allows you to really, really take just those little bits and pieces left over. We have in the makerspace in Brooklyn, in this building, is Fab Scrap, which is phenomenal resource, and you can volunteer there. They recycle fabrics, and you can take even these small things that are being thrown away or would have just been put into, you know, the shredder to make insulation. But I'm like, oh, actually these patterns and things, they can still be made into something, and made into something beautiful, not just something that we hobbled together. So this is a current project. I know it looks like it'll take forever, but it's coming along very quickly. Wow. Versus this puppy, which did not come along quickly at all.
This is my personal favorite piece.
Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful.
I know most people will see this and be like, I want one in full size. And I'm like, actually, if you were to wear this dress, it would be really heavy. Like, it is solid beading front and back, and so it would be really almost excruciatingly heavy to wear. If you had this in high heels, oh my gosh, that would be like terrible. But then since coming to the makerspace and getting to work with other team members here, and you know, Scott and some of the other regular people that I see all the time, I've been less intimidated to start learning more and more skills.
So can you tell me more about, how did you find out about Futureworks MakerSpace?
So I am a huge Adam Savage fan. I mean, I don't know any makers that are not nerd fans of him. And in his tested videos, at one point he toured a makerspace. And I think it was one in Massachusetts or Maine, somewhere up there. And it was just the most glorious 25-minute tour of heaven. And I was just stunned. I was just like, what is this nirvana? This exists? Like, where do I have to move to be by a makerspace? And I had looked at, are there, you know, this is New York City, surely we have everything, right? And I looked for makerspaces, and we had Makerspace Staten Island, but I was crossing a bridge that I don't normally cross, and the ferries, and it seemed a bit too much. And there were some very small maker spaces in Brooklyn, but they were, you know, very hard to get into. They were really quite expensive. So I was still like, I was on a waiting list for a couple places, and that was that. I'm like, okay, well, someday maybe I'll get to have one of these amazing, like, mythical things that is a makerspace. And I continued to just work in my apartment in this space that I could carve out for myself. And I just would check back in. A few weeks later, I checked back in, and they had just announced the opening of the Brooklyn Makerspace. And I immediately got my name, you know, I'm coming in for an open house. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm sending all these emails, and I'm like, I just so desperately wanted to make it on the list. Sure, they were gonna fill up before they ever even opened, and could I even make it? Could I wanna be a part of this? And I came down and toured, met Scott and DB, and got to see the space. And I was one of those early people that's like, are we open yet? Are we open yet? Are we open yet? Are we open yet? And then got to come in for the volunteer days as we got the space ready and really got to launch into it. So even in our soft opening time, I was lucky enough to start using the space. But it's so much bigger. It's so much more intensive than any makerspace in New York City. The space is, I mean, we have the shop bot over there. We've got the lathes, we've got the routers, we've got the laser cutters. I mean, it's just overwhelming. I mean, the embroidery machine alone is an incredible tool. Enough to make me say, like, what? How do I start working? I mean, just having this many open tables with this much space in New York City, I would be a member just to have big open tables to work off of. So yeah, so I was lucky enough to be one of the earliest members to the new Brooklyn Makerspace. And so to finally have a space that is just to focus on that work, just to be focused on that making. I'm not distracted by doing the dishes or, you know, anything else in my apartment or life. This is my workspace, but also having people that I see here and get to talk out about my projects, or they see what I'm making and get excited about it. It adds to that energy, and I don't feel like I'm in a bubble trying to make this out of thin air. Now it's being real, it's being tangible, and I have people that are championing me and cheering me on, and that makes a really big difference.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Your work is beautiful, and
thank you for having me.
Like, follow Anneke on Cinch Films.
Cinch Mark Films.
Cinch Mark Films on Instagram. Your mind will be blown. I promise you that. And we just look forward to seeing more progress. Yeah. The quilts, everything's miniature. This is amazing. The only thing next is to make me miniature so I can live in all of this space. So if I could fit in my ideal New York apartment, made by you.
I know, right? If only. Right. Well, thank you. You know, the makerspace means a lot to me. So it's exciting and a privilege to be your maker of the month.
Deb interviewed Anneke at Futureworks MakerSpace. Bye.